So my name is Craig Hinchman and I do Hinchman Farmstead. And my main focus is pasture-raised poultry, both meat and eggs. So I sell whole chickens and some cut-ups and sell eggs. I also do a little bit of honeybees and honey, and then well, I've got pigs and stuff just for my family that I do on my own. I raise Cornish cross chickens, and I do those because they go from when I get them at a day or two old to ready to process in 8 weeks. So that's my time is an 8-week time frame. They spend roughly the first 3 weeks in the brooder, and that's inside under the heat lamp just to keep them safe while they're little before they grow their full feathers so where they can take more of the outside weather. And then at 3 weeks old, they get moved down to pasture. And I guess that's a big thing that I do is I raise mine out on grass, out on pasture, moved every day so that they have fresh grass and bugs and all that good stuff to eat. So this is one of the brooders that I use for my chickens. And this one will do, it's about 20 birds at a time, and it's just a whole one sheet of plywood builds the body of it. And they'll spend their first 3 weeks in here, and then when they're done, or when I'm done with it at the end of the year, it'll just come apart in the pieces and then lay flat for easy storage. Inside the barn or the garage towards the beginning of the year during the cooler weather, and then they've got to have heat. So I've got a couple different, the traditional or heat lamps, and those work well. You can just hang those and adjust the height and gives them something to stay warm. But my favorite one, the new one that I got this year, were the adjustable heat plates. And this one I got from Premier One. And so this will do 50 chicks, and it's a contact heat, so it's closer to what they would have from a mother hen. And that sits on the ground or in the brooder, and then the legs adjust for the height. And then feed and water in the brooder. So you use just little chick trays, fill those up with the feed. And then I use magic water for the first 3 weeks for the chicks while they're in the brooder. And I like the hanging bell waterers. Like I said earlier, the Cornish cross take 8 weeks, and they spend about 3 weeks in the brooder, just kind of depending on the weather. And so I'll plan my year out around that so that I've got new chicks coming, about every 3 weeks, so that by the time the first ones are done in the brooder, they get moved out to the field, and then we're ready for the next set of chicks to go in the brooders. And I'll start, the goal is to have the first batch of the year out in the field or out in pasture about a week after our last frost date. So that gets us, into the first or second week of May usually. And that's when I shoot to get my first birds out in the pasture. And then later in the summer, once it warms up and there's not as much temperature change, the cold nights that'll harm the chicks or not make them grow well, I'll do some brooders that are just out in the yard. And I build all of my stuff and repurpose and redo and change. So this started as just a rabbit tractor for rabbits out in the field, and then but I also, in the warmer weather, we'll use it to get the chicks out on grass even a little earlier, so they get some of that bugs and natural food. Then another kind of brooder I use is just I build a shed. So I use it in the off season for storage for poultry supplies, and then I'll use it also for the chicks. But then I also raise broad-breasted white turkeys. And so since they're a little bigger and need a little bit more headspace, more room, I'll brood them usually in the shed. All right, so around 3 weeks of age, they'll get moved out of the brooder, and I'll bring them down here to the pasture. And one of the ways I kind of keep them corralled to keep them safe and to manage my pasture is with the electric poultry netting, and it's by Premier One. And so it's a movable step-in post fence that moves with the birds as I need to move them. And I've just got it hooked to a solar energizer, and that protects them from predators and keeps them safe. So once my chickens come down to pasture, I raise them in mobile chicken tractors, and these are a John Siskovich style tractor. You can get online and look up his work and designs. It's got a door on the front that I can get in, and a hanging feeder and a hanging water bucket. And it'll do about 30 chickens. It's got no ground or no floor, so they've got just access to the grass and bugs. And then it's got wheels on the back, or wheels that come off and move from shelter to shelter. And once a day when they're smaller, and then by the time they're closer to processing, twice a day, you can hook it up and you lift up the front and you can just move them to fresh grass, so it gets off of where they had been and onto new stuff. For my turkeys, once they're big enough to be out and safe on their own, I've just got another mobile shelter that's got roosts and a little bit of roof to get them out of the rain, and it's the same thing, wheels go on the back. I can grab onto it and just move it every day to keep them on fresh grass. So I mix my own feed. That was part of why I do what I'm doing, is to have control over how the birds are raised and what they're eating and inputs. So I do my own mix. I get ingredients, roasted soybean and corn, calcium, oats, and a fur trail NutriBalancer, and mix up my own feed rations for all my animals. Thank you for coming by today, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.